channel. I hope you guys are all staying safe and staying at home. Today's video is going to be the books that I'm reading during self-isolation. I figured I'd share them with you guys in case any of them interest you, or if you need a little inspiration to pick up the book that you've been wanting to read for a while or haven't been reading but wanted to. I did split them into 3 different categories. So we have self-help and spiritual, nonfiction and fiction. So let's go ahead and let's start with the self-help and spiritual. First book that I'm gonna read in the self-help / spiritual category of the books is Atomic Habits, and I'm sure you've seen so many people talk about this book, but honestly it's for good reason. It's probably one of the best books I've ever read. It's very easy to understand, and he makes analogies as far as like how to understand why and how something works. He explains the origin of a habit, how it's created, why it's created, how your brain works with the habit, and why it's hard to break bad ones and why it's hard to break a habit in general, which is really interesting because I'd never had that broken down to me before. So to really read it in a way where it's easy to understand but it makes so much sense, it really helps you to where you can break a habit that you didn't want anymore and where it even came from, which is really cool. So he has chapter summaries at the very end of every chapter, so it just kind of helps you pull the important stuff out of that chapter. And if you have already read it and you want to go back and just kind of like see summaries of it, it's easy to do that. And he uses a lot of analogies, but the analogies really make it click. So like for instance, in the first chapter he explains how every small decision that you make is going to lead to a big change, and a lot of people don't see those small decisions that you make, so it can be considered or even perceived as an overnight success, when in reality you've been putting in so many small efforts that led to this one big change. He uses the analogy of you sitting at a table with an ice cube in front of you in a 25-degree Fahrenheit room. So you turn that degree up to 26, ice cube still there, 27, still there, all the way up to 31 degrees. Nothing's happened to the ice cube, you don't visibly see a change. And you change it to 32 degrees and the ice cube starts to melt. So changing that 1 degree made it change, but there was so many other changes up to that change of 1 degree that you didn't see. I would definitely recommend this book 100,000%. I'm not done with it yet, I'm still in the process of reading it, but I love this book, I love it. So I would definitely recommend this one, and I'm going to be reading this every single morning because it's very motivating. The second book is Big Magic. It's about how to tap into your creativity. She's basically explaining to you how to tap into your creativity, how to be inspired to go take action and put your fear aside to really do what it is that you love, and that puts that spark in you. So it's really inspiring, and I started it a long time ago, but I haven't finished it, so I really want to just restart it, and considering what I love to do is create, I figured it'd be a good fit. So and she also wrote Eat, Pray, Love. So but if you are a creative and you want to kind of figure out how to tap into it even more, I would definitely recommend this book. This next one is more spiritual, and it's The Untethered Soul. I adore this book. This one and Atomic Habits are probably the most life-changing in my opinion. This is more so of your ego and your spirituality versus the habits are more so like mental, more self-help. This is definitely more spiritual. It is self-help, but more so in the fact of like how to release yourself from your ego so that you can be free internally. Your ego keeps you from doing things that you may need to do to grow. So the ego is what protects you. So like if you're wanting to go, for instance, for me, it was to start a YouTube channel. I was so scared of that. I was so scared of like what people would think, what I would say if I wouldn't, you know, be able to create something that people would want to watch. And my ego is what always talked me out of it. It would always say like, well, whenever I have this, I'll start it. Like, no. He explains how your ego, your subconscious, how the way that you think and your perception of the universe can be holding you back. And he just kind of takes you into a deep evaluation of your spirituality and your mentality. Not necessarily in spirituality in a way of like religion, but more so of like your connection to yourself and to the universe. It's really interesting. It's a very deep and thought-provoking book for sure. It's very easy to understand, but there are some times where you just kind of want to read it again just to make sure you understand it thoroughly. But I would definitely recommend this one, especially along with Atomic Habits. And he also goes so far as like how your energy and your chakras, and how there could be an energy block that's keeping you from doing what it is that you actually want to do. So I like to take notes on my phone while I read too, on different points that just like stand out to me. And one thing I did want to read you from the Untethered Soul, just kind of so you understand what it's about. With energy, he explains how there can be a blockage. So samskaras, that's basically an unfinished energy that it's a blockage that ruins your life. So it's basically where you store energy from like a past situation and those feelings, and you just hold on to that to where nothing else can come through. So he says samskaras are packaged and stored, and they build up, restricting energy flow. This is where depression comes from. When samskaras build up so much, very little energy can go into your heart and mind, and the world of senses must pass through that depressed energy before getting to your consciousness. So it can really push you to deal with feelings that maybe you've had for a long time that are holding you back, that you need to cope through so that you can actually enjoy your life and process everything in the way it should be. So it's a really thought-provoking and interesting book, and I would definitely recommend it, especially for this self-isolation period. The next one I really want to read, and I can't believe I haven't read this yet, is The Four Agreements, and I feel like it's such a classic. I just really think it takes us back to our moral foundation, and I think that's so important, especially during a time like this. And it's a very simple read. It's not very thick at all. I just feel like it's something that I should have already read and I haven't read, and I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I haven't read it yet. So it's on my list, and I'm excited to read it because I've flipped through it before and read little paragraphs in it, and I just think it's really going to be a good one. If you're looking for kind of like an introductory self-help / spiritual book, I feel like this would be a really good one to read. Last self-help / spiritual book that I have is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. This one I'm really taking my time reading. I've been reading it for a long time, but the way Eckhart Tolle writes is very in-depth, I guess. It's very, you have to read it multiple times for it to really click, at least for me. I don't know. Let me know if you've read any of his books and if it's like that way for you, if I'm just a ding-dong. But I do love his books, and they have amazing ideas and it's amazing content, honestly. It's stuff that really gets you thinking, and this one is mainly about how to transcend your ego-based state of consciousness and how doing that is going to make you happier, but it can be the key to ending any kind of like conflict and suffering throughout the world. So basically, ego is one of the main problems of the world today, because people are just so like, ego is what creates any kind of those anger, jealousy, fear. It creates all of those emotions. So I think that's really what a lot of the issues in the world come about from. So if we can really just learn how to fight through that, it can really just make a change in the world, and this book kind of tells you how to do that. So yeah, if you decide to do this one or The Power of Now, take your time reading it. It's best to take your time to make sure you understand it instead of just blowing through it and not getting a single thing from it. So, but yeah, this one's definitely on my list, and I can't wait to read it. The next category that we're going through are nonfiction books. So the first one is one kind of like the Eckhart Tolle one. I'm really taking my time with it. Is The Secret History of the World. It can step on some toes, depending on how you feel about the world. If you're into like conspiracy theories and like secret societies, you'll really like this book. It's basically talking about how the way we were taught how the world came to be isn't really how it came to be, and it goes through the teachings that like different secret societies teach their members that are coming in. Supposedly they're actually teaching them the truth. I'm not really sure. I just started it. I'm not really that far into it, but it talks about like, these are all the different topics in it. I don't know if it's gonna focus. There it goes. So yeah, it just seems really interesting to me. So it just is something to really take your time with, and if it's something that you're interested in, definitely give it a shot. It's a really interesting read, and again, is something else that kind of gets your brain working and moving a little bit. So, but yeah, it's pretty good so far. I definitely recommend it, and I can't wait to actually get more into depth with it. My next nonfiction book is a smaller read, and it's a little bit of meditation. I am not consistent with meditating at all. I've only done it maybe once or twice, and it was through guided meditations, and it's something I really want to learn more about. I want to understand it more so that I can actually practice it better than what I am now, and I don't really know a whole lot about it. This teaches you where meditation came from and different types of meditations, and it really just goes into depth about it and into detail, and it's small, it's easy to read, like I said, and it's still teaching me a lot and a lot about mindfulness, which is something I really need to work on because I have never really been good at that because I'm a worrier. I'm always worrying, so I don't really know how to quiet my mind. So I would love to learn more about meditation so I can really get into it and understand it and go even more spiritually in depth with myself, because I don't know, I've always heard about different encounters you can have after meditating, especially like having vivid dreams or just being more intuitive, and it's just something that's really fascinating to me. So this is a book I'm really excited to read. And the last nonfiction book that I have is The Stars Within You, A Modern Guide to Astrology. I love astrology. I love learning about zodiac signs. I love learning about the stars. As you can tell by my logo before, I love the moon. Anything with the moon, I'm just drawn to it. I don't know what it is. And I want to understand astrology even more so I can fully appreciate it. And it also really just tells you so much about a person. Like, I'm an Aries, and I never really thought I fit the criteria to an Aries, but the more I learned about what an Aries is and how they act, I was like, yeah, that's definitely me. But it also goes through every single sign. It goes through rising signs, it goes through moon signs, Mercury, what every little sign stands for and what it could mean. It tells you what it means when each planet is in each zodiac sign. So like if Mercury is in Taurus, or if, you know, Saturn's in Libra, like it tells you all those different things. And they break down like the houses, it breaks down just where astrology came from, and I just think it's really cool. I think the cover's really cool too. It's just something I really wanted to learn about, so I figured what better time than right now. My last two books are fiction books, and I think just getting lost in a really good simple story, especially during a stressful time like this, is something that can be really beneficial for you. So the first one that I have is The Red Queen. I'm just gonna read the back to you so you understand what it's about instead of me trying to explain it to you. Mayor Barrow's world is divided by blood, those with red and those with silver. Mayor and her family are lowly reds destined to serve the silver elite whose supernatural abilities make them nearly gods. Mayor steals what she can to help her family survive, but a twist of fate leads her to the royal palace itself. In front of the king and all his nobles, she discovers the ability she didn't know she had, except her blood is red. To hide this impossibility, the king forces her into the role of a lost silver princess and betroths her to one of his own kings. As Mare is drawn further into the silver world, her actions put into motion a deadly and violent dance, pitting prince against prince and Mare against her own heart. So it's really cool. There's two different types of blood, red and silver, and it's basically just like, I don't know, it gives me like, if you cross Game of Thrones with Hunger Games, it gives me that kind of vibe. I don't know why, but I haven't read it yet. It sounds really interesting and I can't wait to dive into it, so yeah. So the last fiction book that I have is something that I've had since high school, and I used to go to college for fashion design, and still is one of my passions. It's just I don't go to school for it anymore, but I won like best dress in high school and everything, so fashion was always a really big deal to me. So when I found this book, I got really excited. I just never read it for some reason. I don't know why, but it's called Measuring Up, and it's about this girl. She is coming back to her senior year in high school from an internship she had over the summer in New York City, and she doesn't really know exactly what it is that she wants to do and what path she wants to go in, but she feels a lot of pressure from her friends because they all know what they want to do in college, which happened to me. I rushed into college and it ended up not being for me, and I think a lot of people do that, especially if you're like 17 or 18 years old. There's so much pressure to just figure out what you want to go to school for, and that's such a young age. I'm only 22, but just thinking back to where my mentality was then and everything I've learned since then, it's just such a young age to be asked like, hey, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Like, and especially as much college costs. Like, I'm not against college, I just really think it's important to take some time to explore and decide what you want to do. So that's really what this book is about. I feel like a lot of people can just relate to it. Anytime she describes an outfit, there's fashion illustrations in here, which is really cool. So like she described in the first chapter her outfit that she was wearing that day, and it already had like a little fashion illustration showing it. So it's really cool, and I can flip through and show you, like, yeah. There's a few in there, which is kind of cool. It gives you a visual to work with. It's a fun, lighthearted read, so I definitely am excited to read it finally. Alright guys, so that's gonna be all the books that I'm reading during self-isolation. If you have any books that you're reading, leave them down in the comments below. I would love to hear. I'm all about new book recommendations. I love getting lost in a good book and just learning something if it's a nonfiction book. So I really hope you guys are staying safe, staying home, washing your hands, and if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe because it really supports my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!